So I'm pretty torn on this, and as promised, the initial thoughts will be non-spoiler. There are some places, of course, we all knew that we're going. Hopefully, that will not be a spoiler. Kind of know that Frankie and Caleb are coming together. Kind of know that Maeve and Hale or Charlotte or whatever are gonna have a confrontation. But let's start off positive. What was really, really good? Well, again, gonna be a broken record. Probably the Man in Black and William. Their story has been fairly consistent, pretty cohesive, very compelling, very well performed, and it makes sense. They probably are the one story here throughout the entire season. There's no major issues or questions. It all flows very, very well together. And we knew what was going to happen, basically, which is that William, the human, and William, the host, would have a conversation. And as I predicted, and as we all kind of knew, William is not going to be happy just taking Hale's orders and is going to rebel. It's non spoiler, so I'm not going to say more than that, but yeah, he does make the decision to rebel against Hale's order. We all knew it was coming, but it was pretty satisfying seeing it. It was pretty brutal and dark, even for the Man in Black, but I thought it was a little out there, but I could see why William would arrive at the decision he made, which is pretty shocking, but it does feel like William. And then we get to the moderately good stuff or just plain baffling, which is the Christina, Bernard, and Maeve stories, which I think some of it is legitimately fuzzy, right? It's Westworld. They can't reveal everything, but we are closing the season, and we did get some satisfying answers as to what Hale is up to and why she did what she did, and her making certain drastic decisions made sense. Caleb and Frankie sort of being disoriented, okay, that made sense too. But then with Christina and Maeve, and some of this depends on Bernard, like what is Bernard's plan? We got a lot of it now, finally, but still, certain parts were like, And we understand he knows things we can't know because he's been through this kind of simulation thousands, if not millions of times. So he can anticipate as well as maybe withholding information for legitimate reasons. But still, it does feel like a Duke's ex machina and not in a good way. I'd say with Maeve, it was moderately bad. There just felt like the character isn't progressing. That's fine. I guess I just had higher hopes for what they were going to do with her, but they're kind of just going back to season three and even season two and one, which was disappointing, but just a decision of the narrative style. But I think with Christina, what they did is legitimately a little bit too much. There is still some good stuff. The kind of Jesus water imagery, that was very strong. I mean, her name is Christina, so they're playing on the Christ metaphor and the Christ myth. Okay, that was fine. It was very well acted. It's actually very powerful, strong imagery when she has this scene with Teddy where she's in water and she's basically taken off her clothes and we see her with this kind of black bra. But the scene is still weird because is she drowning? Is she in a dream? Don't know. It was very effective and very powerful, but still have questions about, well, who is this person and what are the limits of her power? Because it seemed for a while she's basically omnipotent, and why would Hale give her this power or allow the power? Still don't know. And when Teddy gives us sort of an answer at the end, you're like, what does that even mean? Before she was a god, now she's something else too. And you're like, how could this possibly make any sense with what we've seen, especially with Maya, her roommate? So they've left quite a lot on the table. That's the whole point, to give us a cliffhanger, but I did think it was sort of illegitimate. Like, they've pulled the rug this entire season pretty well without really destroying credibility, but I did think in this episode they kind of came close. But overall, it's a very strong episode. Some of the twists, especially with Frankie, were really unexpected. I did not think they were going to go there, and I'm like, oh, okay, interesting. I will say though, some of the stunt work, and I want to again not spoil anything. Some of the special effects and the way they were done visually were a little laughable in certain places, and other places people pointed to seemingly legitimate editing errors. So that was a little shocking, but maybe they're not editing errors. Maybe there was intentional. For the most part, really great stuff. Performances, the music especially. Music was really, really powerful this episode. So again, there were just a lot of highlights, but there were definitely moments that you felt the narrative is just really stretching credibility, even for Westworld. the Neo Matrix addiction they've had this entire season was getting a little boring. So I do congratulate them for easing up on that, and I think they did that fairly well. Although, of course, Neo is also kind of a Christ figure, so not totally cured of their addiction, but I thought this one was at least much more moderate in the way they've been using the Matrix influence. So overall, I'm giving this a strong score, an 8 out of 10, but I'm going to give it a big question mark because I do feel in places they basically just took a big leap and expect us to take the big leap, and I'm still asking, why are we taking such a big leap? It just doesn't feel like it was well constructed enough. But presumably the final episode will provide better resolution because here it just felt like, really, except for William, a lot of these are just question marks. But the William stuff was pretty strong and pretty vital to a lot of the plot. So we're just going to wait and see if the William plot line really allows the other plot lines to cohere. If not, still a pretty great season, but a few misfires, which they were pretty good at avoiding early on in the season. But I don't know. Can't ask for perfection all the time, I guess.